get started in just about one minute. We'll give folks another minute to join. Thanks for checking in, Susan. And it is 11 o'clock, so we are going to honor your time. And first of all, thank you for being here. My name is Michelle Pacansky-Brock, and I'm faculty mentor with CVC and @ONE. And we are here today for Connections That Count, how COPs are advancing AI conversations. I would like to get started with just a little bit of housekeeping. And we know that many of our attendees join our webinars and are interested in getting verification of your attendance. And so I want to answer the question, how do I get that verification right from the start? Anwar, my colleague who is here with us today, is going to be dropping a webinar evaluation link in the chat at 11:30 and then again at 11:45 and then just before we wrap up at noon. And that survey is both an opportunity to send your feedback and an opportunity to get your verification of attendance. So if you complete the survey, which we hope everyone does, at the very bottom, you'll see an option to send your responses to you or send me my responses or something like that. But you want to click that option. And then when you get the email with your responses, we ask that you use that as your verification. So that is how to take care of that. And then also this webinar is being recorded and it will be available next week on the CVC @ONE webinars page where you'll find all the archives of all of our spring webinars. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We are here today for a conversation with some colleagues. We have 3 panelists who will be joining in just a little bit. Before we do that, I have a little bit of an interactive activity that I'd like to invite you to join. And you can do this either using your phone by scanning the QR code if that's something that is accessible to you, or you're welcome to click on the link that I just put in the chat. And you should see a prompt that says, what 2 words come to mind when you hear community of practice? If you don't see that, let me know. And I'm just going to go ahead. Let's see. I drop this up here. Will that work? And here are your responses coming in on the screen. Okay, so from the responses that have come in, we've had 46 responses, which is a pretty good number. We have collaboration as number 1. That is the most commonly, that is the word that you've responded with the most frequently, and also sharing and learning are coming in very frequently. So this is a great way for us to gauge your perceptions about what community of practice means to you. And that's what we wanted to get started with today, is just untangling that a little bit. A community of practice is it's a term that was coined back in 1991 by educational theorists Lev and Wenger. And it is generally defined as a group of people, which is referred to as the community, who share a concern, passion, or a topic of or practice, which is the domain, and they work together to deepen their knowledge and expertise through regular interactions, which is the practice. Okay, so again, there's three components generally that hold together or define a community practice. It's the community, the domain, and the practice. And you need all three of those things to operate together effectively to have a community of practice. And then it's through the regular social interaction. So having the same people come together and interact regularly over time and share resources, example stories, and personal experiences through that social learning, the social interaction, that the group together collaboratively builds new understandings and insights. And this is a really important part of a community of practice, is that it's from the research, we know that COPs, or communities of practice, generate new knowledge, and it's a different kind of knowledge that gets generated through other types of learning. And we also know that participants generally acquire these new insights that advance them in their domain. So they're coming in with some kind of shared practice or a problem they're trying to solve, and they leave with new ideas and new ways of seeing it and resolving it. This is an image here. Images really resonate with me. I have a master's in art history, and I taught art history for years and an undergraduate degree in art. So I include a lot of images, and I feel that things make more sense to me when I see them. So if COPs are new to you, if that's something that you haven't heard of before, this illustration here by Jane Shore, who works on a site called School of Thought. I took this from her, I borrowed this from her Substack with her permission. She illustrates, or she uses the term siloed learning and people-based learning. And so oftentimes we can think about, the way we learn through different interactions. Oh, yes, you should be able to see an image now, Leslie. Can everyone see my screen? Can everyone else see my screen, I should say? Okay, see.
I think many people cannot see it. Weird, because some people can and some people can't.
Folks, you might have the wrong Zoom view activated. Zoom recently upgraded, and it takes a little while to figure it out. But if you could look at the top of the screen, and I can't remember what you need to click on because I don't have the same view, but I think it says presenter. I'm not quite sure how to remedy that situation.
Michelle, I can chime in really quickly. Typically on the top right now, you'll see one box that says meeting, and the other one will say Michelle Pacansky's screen. So if you click the one that says Michelle Pacansky's Brock's screen, that's the one she's currently sharing, and that should help.
Many people also mentioned to have it on standard view.
Okay, I'm going to just stop sharing and share again, and I don't know if that might help for you folks, but I'll give that a try. Now I seem to have lost my Zoom. What is Zoom? Where are you? Okay, this is a little strange. Oh, there we go. I see it now. Give me a second. Give me a second. I'll be back. I'll be back. I'm almost there. Okay. So I'm sorry. I hope that we can resolve that problem and you can all figure out how to see my screen. Okay, it looks like that worked for some folks. So again, this illustration delineates the difference between these two types of learning. And I don't know if everyone agrees with this, but sometimes when I'm attending a webinar, I feel a little bit siloed, and workshops can often kind of feel this way too. Gosh, for that matter, college classes can feel that way too, because it comes down to the way that they're facilitated, right? And oftentimes workshops and webinars are kind of these one-off events, so they end really quickly and you don't have that really ongoing regular opportunity for the social interactions that are a really big and important part of a community practice. So what we're doing here with CVC and @ONE, we provide professional development at the state level for educators in the California Community College system with a focus on online education. And what we're really interested in doing with regards to the challenges that we're seeing emerging with generative AI is to provide some way to increase the capacity of community colleges in our system to change and respond to generative AI through cross-college collaboration. What we're seeing from our level is a lot of angst, a lot of emotion. We're seeing, a lot of folks jumping in individually, but not knowing how to connect with colleagues and move the conversation forward. And so that is where we saw an opportunity for a community of practice that would create a community of AI leaders and also help us at the state level learn and start to identify what institutions need and what success stories are out there. And so this webinar today is really part of that effort also. So to be a little bit more specific and to take this concept of a COP that I just introduced a moment ago and apply it to the work we're doing. So we've got these terms, domain, community, and practice that I just introduced. And to the work we're doing, the domain is to improve or initiate an institutional response to generative AI. Okay, so that's kind of the problem or the interest, the passion of our practitioners. The community or the people who are engaged are California Community College educators. Mostly we've had faculty involved, I'd say about 80%, but we've also had, I'd say 15% classified and 5% administrators engaged with our COP work with this train the trainer model. And then the practice was through the peer interactions and sharing of experiences. The participants in the COP cohorts that we've been facilitating, their goal has been to develop an AI community of practice of their own and facilitate it at their own institution. And that is how we at the state level are fostering institutional capacity, or at least doing our best to support with that. So with the community practice that we have been facilitating starting since fall, we've had 3 cohorts, and I'll get to those numbers in just a little bit. But each person who has participated has joined voluntarily. So we've put a call out. That call has gone out through the DECO, the DE coordinator organization. And so most of our practitioners have been related to distance education, and that's very, connected with the CVC @ONE community overall. And as those folks come into the COP, they agree to lead an AI community of practice at their own college the following term. And then throughout our sessions, and our COPs have varied a little bit, but I'll get into specifics on the next slide. Each participant engages in collaborative conversations, sharing of ideas, giving feedback to one another. And over those sessions, they envision and design a community of practice, and this is important, that is tailored to the unique needs and culture of their college or district. So we understand that for some colleges we're hearing, oh yeah, there's some really cool stuff happening and I want to help advance that. And for other institutions, it's very different. And they're just saying, I'm concerned. There's not a lot going on. How can I help get something started? So bringing everyone together and sharing in this space has been, we think it's been very valuable. And also, of course, through the experience of participating in the CVC @ONE Train the Trainer AICOP, they're also immersed in the community practice model as a participant. So it's that situated learner that goes back to the work of Lev and Wenger that really helps them imagine and envision and become more knowledgeable about how to facilitate their own COP. And I want to acknowledge that a lot of folks who come in already have that knowledge and that experience too. So this is an image here that is titled the COP life cycle. And I think I'm realizing that I have 2 images on there, which looks a little funny. Sorry. But it's taken from a really fabulous resource. The link is at the bottom of the slide, and I do want to put the slides link in the chat for anybody who wants to check out the resources that we have linked on the slides from Every Learner Everywhere. And it's nice because it lays out the different phases of the COP life cycle, and it starts with envisioning, goes through designing, facilitating, evaluating, and sustaining. And in the COP, the train the trainer model, we start with this envisioning process, which is all about it's kind of like backwards course design, right? You've got to figure out where you want to go and start understanding what the needs of your institution are and what the strategic plan of your institution looks like. Kind of really thinking about how can we do something that will contribute to what's happening where we are and move things forward. And then we go into the design phase and start thinking about some of the structural elements, the deliverables, will there be an incentive, and putting together the architecture around the COP. And then the facilitation happens, the evaluation, and then we get into that sustaining phase. And sustaining looks very different with every COP. So we can talk a little bit more about that later. So the engagement that we've had so far, we've had 3 cohorts, 1 cohort in the fall, and the 3 panelists that I'm about to turn things over to are from cohort 1. And we've had a total of 47 participants from different California community colleges, with a few representing their district as well. And very diverse COP plans have come out of the Train the Trainer COP, which is really cool to see. And that diversity reflects the variations in institutional cultures, as well as the current AI responses and conversations that are happening at the institutional level. So with that said, I'd like to introduce our panel for today. They're all each going to introduce themselves, but just real quickly, we have Christy Davis Rosa here from Chabot College, and Dawn Button here from Sac City College, and Jim Julius here from Miracosta College. Thank you to the 3 of you for taking the time out to go the extra mile and share with us what is happening at your institution. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second and go ahead and get us started with the first question that I have for you folks. And I'm also going to put that question in the chat in case it's helpful for those of you on the other side to see it. I know that helps me sometimes following a panel. Yeah, so if you could just share a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about your college's response to AI and how the CVC at One Train the Trainer COP helps you conceptualize how your COP fits in. And Christy, why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you very much for this opportunity to share the work that we're doing at Chabot. I am the Instructional Technology Coordinator at Chabot College. In addition to that full-time hat, I also am a Communication Studies adjunct faculty member as well, so that is my second hat at Chabot College. A little bit about Chabot's response to AI. It was our response, I think, as a college probably reflects a lot of what's happening around the district from the conversations that I've had with other folks. It's a little scattered and really runs the spectrum from embracing AI to being afraid of AI. The other really sort of characteristic about what's happening at Chabot for me personally from the roles that I have here at Chabot is our response felt very siloed. Sort of referring back to what Michelle was talking about earlier, there's some really great work going on in different divisions, departments, but it wasn't really well known, and it felt very siloed and sort of flying under the radar. And how did the COP help me? When I first started the COP, I had these grand visions about what I wanted to do and what I wanted to accomplish and where I wanted Chabot to go. And as we worked together in the COP, I really came to realize that that's not where Chabot was. We didn't need a grand plan. We weren't ready for some sort of overarching exercise. What we needed was sort of smaller chunks. And so that's what I ended up designing, was a COP that really was sort of smaller in nature and feels like it's more achievable.
Sounds
And then
good,
I'll
Christy.
thank you, Michelle.
Do you have more to say?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you so much for that introduction and for kicking things off. Why don't we go to Dawn and then Jim?
Yeah, so Don Button from Sacramento City College. I'm a design and digital media professor teaching graphic design and user interface design mostly. But I've been serving at City College in various capacities around the AI question, including being a co-chair of our AI task force last year, where we put together a report on the status and recommendations about how to deal with it within the college. And I'm currently serving 20% time and probably 40% over the next couple of years in my load as AI faculty AI coordinator. Working with our distance ed and our ed various other people who are full-time in areas like that. So it's kind of new to me to be a coordinator and to work in this capacity with all the faculty campus-wide. Our situation is very similar to what Christy said. It's very siloed. There are different things going on, not just within the college, but within the 4-college Los Rios district. Not a lot of communication over the last couple of years until really late last fall. Things started to happen at the different colleges, and people started to communicate with each other about where they were going. It's very bottom up, which I think is good. There has not been any top down leadership from the district on this as to letting faculty figure it out, which is good and bad in different ways, I suppose. But anyway, go back to the question there. So yeah, so there are various activities happening. Some are funded, well, actually this semester is the first semester that anything in Los Rios at any of the colleges has been funded around AI. Everything up till now has been faculty doing things on their own and figuring it out. So there are various other projects going on around AI that are more specific in different departments. But taking part in the community practice in the first cohort in the fall was really eye-opening. I'd never had any experience with that. And I found it really encouraging and eye-opening about how I could help lead in a different way to address this. Figuring out what we don't want us to go into what we did exactly topic wise at this point.
We'll get that next.
Yeah,
we'll get to that next.
Right. Yeah. So I won't go into that. But yeah, it was really great working with the other faculty from around the state and getting a sense of where everyone was at and trying to see our place, our college's place within the spectrum of what colleges are doing statewide or not doing. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about that so far.
Thanks, Don.
Yeah.
So hi, everyone. My name is Jim. I am faculty coordinator of online education at Miracosta. It is a full-time position, full-time faculty position dedicated to all things online education. And so AI has been kind of naturally a part of the conversations that I've been part of and helping to provide leadership for that. Over the last couple of years, I've also been serving as what we call the coordinating officer of our academic senate, which I work closely with our president and vice president. And it's a 20% release time position to help coordinate activities of the academic senate. So we've had a task force that I've helped to lead during that time. I would say, in one sense, I don't think our college's response has been as siloed as my colleagues have shared. We've had a lot of very great conversations starting right away in response to the introduction of generative AI at the end of 22. We had some great open webinars that various people kind of organized, and had a lot of conversations just, oh wow, what is this? What should we be doing about it? And that's continued on in a lot of formats. And I want to share a couple things with you in a minute. But what I'd also say is that sometimes I think we get a feeling when these conversations are happening and we're part of them that like there's a general awareness about these conversations and what's being discussed. And I think the reality is the vast majority of folks are not engaged in that, right? They're just trying to do their jobs. They have a lot on their plates. And for a lot of those folks, AI has been sort of like, oh gosh, I keep hearing about it and I know I need to do something about it, but what should that be? And I think over time, over these last couple of years, as more and more faculty have experienced seeing that their students are using AI in some way, then questions come up, and they know they want to know more. But I'm going to share my screen for just a second because I want to share a couple things in terms of the MiraCosta context that are a little bit separate from the COP, but I think might be interesting to people and that I've shared with people in the past. So first of all, up here in this context area, MiraCosta is one of the first, if not, I think it is the first community college in the state to offer an associate's degree in AI. And so I'm just going to share that link with you in the chat. If you want to learn more about it, you can see some of the specific courses that are listed there. And I kind of end up being a gateway a lot of times between people that hear about that and that want to connect with the faculty that are teaching those classes. So if you want to, feel free to reach out to me. There's also this really cool thing that we've been doing for about a year and a half, and it's not me at all. It is a combination of what we call our joyful teacher in residence, who has a 60% release time as our leader of our Center for Teaching and Learning on campus, and one of those CSIT professors who leads the AI program. And it's called the AI Discovery Lab. And they do it every single week on Tuesday afternoons from 3:30 to 5. They do it in a high flex way. So it's in a campus computer lab, but it's also via Zoom. And it is open to everyone. And I mean faculty, staff, students, administrators, and all those folks are represented in this space. So it's basically kind of an hour and a half of exploration. Hey, try this out. Hey, here was the news about AI this week. Hey, here's a cool thing going on. And a lot of times the students in that space are students who are in this AI program. They have a lot to share and a lot to kind of give their perspective on. So it's a pretty cool space. And on this, I mean, I don't recommend that you go back and listen to hour and a half recordings of this over and over again, but you can see they've been keeping recordings and they've been just talking about what's been discussed. So if you're curious to just dip in and see what that's like, I think it's a really cool model. And I think that's helped to facilitate some of that sense that we're not siloed, that there are these spaces where people are invited to come together. I would also just share that as part of the task force last spring from the Academic Senate, one of the things we tried to do was to have a discussion about how AI impacted our stated institutional values. And that was quite a conversation that I think was really rich, but it's a lot to try to describe what are the challenges, what are the benefits, how does that impact faculty? And we didn't really get to a place where we had anything that came from that. There were great discussions, but they got bogged down a little bit. But one thing I think was very clear was that faculty wanted some guidance in providing clarity to students. They were starting to see students using that. And so part of what we did on that task force, I helped create this document, and the task force, as well as our online ed committee, kind of provided feedback and blessed it. So it's not a formal college policy, but it is something that was sent out from the Senate. So there's the link, Nancy, to this document, and you're welcome to adapt it if it's helpful to you. Just a one pager about providing guidance to students at the class level. So again, I think part of what MiraCosta's done is recognizing this has different impacts on different disciplines, different ways people want to approach instruction, and people are hesitant to dictate anything about whether AI should or shouldn't be used, but we're trying to encourage faculty to provide that clarity. And the last thing I want to just share is that we did an event this January on Fifth Friday. Fifth Fridays typically don't have a lot of things scheduled in terms of governance, and at MiraCosta that often is a day with many governance meetings Fridays, but on Fifth Fridays we don't have that. So we organized this event called AI Fifth Friday, and we invited faculty to propose their own participants, but this was a college-wide event. We had tracks in the morning where everybody came together for some panels, and then classified administrators and faculty each had their own follow-ups. And the faculty had an afternoon with 3 hours of sessions that faculty proposed their own sessions. And so we had like 6 or 7 presentations in each hour. And if this is open to everyone, yeah, you have the link there. So you can see that there's lots of recordings and things like that. Again, it'd be a lot to look at, but if you're curious to see anything, we've got a lot of recordings here. We had Fabiola Torres joining us from Glendale College and doing lots of cool stuff with PlayLab. So this was a wonderful event. And again, I would just say that the takeaway from me from this event was so many faculty showed up and said, for the first time, I feel like I had space to actually engage a bit and not just go, I'll learn about it someday. Oh, it's a lot. Oh, I keep hearing about it. So that was an important recognition of how many faculty, even, as of January 2025, we're still kind of like, AI, I know it's a thing, but I don't really know even where to start. So that was a bit of a revelation, I guess, for a lot of folks.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Dawn. Thanks, Christy. And thanks, Greg, for chiming in the chat there. Greg is saying thank you for the inspiration for what you do at those Fifth Fridays. Folks, as you listen, I want to really invite you to share in the chat. I think the more that everyone who's here in attendance can just hear about what's resonating, and if you're seeing or hearing similarities or differences going on at your institution, feel free to share those. We just want to be sure that you're welcome to do that here to the degree that you feel comfortable. And I think you already have a sense of the diversity, right? How different the institutional contexts are. So moving on, what I'd like to do is have each of you tell us a little bit about the COP that you envisioned and designed during the Train the Trainer COP last fall, and that is rolling out on your campus now, right? So tell us a little bit about that and how it's advancing AI conversations at your college. Christy, I'm going to turn to you first, and we'll do Christy, Dawn, and Jim again. And Christy, let me know when you want me to screen share. If you want me to go ahead and do it now.
Oh, you can, that's fine, Michelle, if you'll screen share now. Thank you. So I mentioned earlier that participating in the COP really changed sort of my vision of what I wanted to do here at Chabot. And instead of having sort of one large COP with a lot of exploration, what I decided to do instead was to create 3 very small, discrete COPs with very concrete deliverables. I know that personally, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, whether it's in the classroom or in my instructional technology coordinator position, having something kind of very concrete, very specific that I can put a big check mark after really makes me feel better and kind of helps to calm some of my anxiety. So I decided to create 3 small, discrete COPs. The first one is titled AI in Your Syllabus. The second one, engaging AI activities, and the third one, redesigning assessment in the age of AI. And the way that we've had these structured is each one lasted approximately 1 month. We put out basically an email to all faculty on campus, both full-time and adjuncts, any faculty member who is interested, and asked them to apply, and gave them specific times and dates when the COPs would be meeting. And we were able to secure a little bit of funding. And so we let everyone who was participating know that we'd be able to secure a little bit of funding, which meant that they had to participate in all of the specific dates that we were proposing. The way we structured the COP was to have an initial meeting where we chose 3 of all of those who applied. We chose 3 per division. And so not everyone who applied was able to participate, but we wanted to make sure that we had participation across campus. Again, sort of trying to figure out how could we combat the silo issue that we were finding we were having on campus. And so we chose from those who applied 3 from each of the divisions here on campus. We met together first in person or Zoom. We kind of did the high flex modality and allowed faculty to participate in either of those ways. We came together, we talked a little bit about what the project was going to, for that particular COP was going to be, giving them a chance to talk. We spoke cross disciplines, did a lot of brainstorming. Then the second meeting was actually going to take place specifically with the 3 members of the specific division. So each division with its 3 members met separately to go over either the language that they wanted to create for their syllabus using a specific class that they taught, or with the engaging AI activities to talk specifically about what activity they wanted to redesign. So then this third meeting that we had was to, again, come back together as a large group and really share out, talk about what our pain points were, what our takeaways were, what our successes were. And you'll notice on this slide that I've shared with you the purpose and takeaway for 2 of the 3. The third one is still in process. We had one for the month of February, one for the month of March, and one for the month of April. So we're still in progress for number 3. So the third meeting was the big group coming back together and sharing out, talking, working through. Then what I felt was really the piece of this that was very important for the overall success of what we were trying to accomplish was the group, the 3, would present at their division meeting. And so I report directly to a vice president of academic services, and she was very supportive of this project. I worked with all of the deans across campus. They were also very supportive of the project and allocated 15 minutes of the following month's division meeting. So division meeting in March for those who participated in February, et cetera. They allocated 15 minutes, of their division meeting for those 3 faculty members to present out to their division in sort of that train the trainer model that we started with the COP back in December. So really trying to help faculty help other faculty in this very specific, concrete way. And so this is sort of how I decided to tackle it here at Chabot. We've gotten a lot of really great feedback from the faculty who participated, as well as from faculty who were part of the division meetings and were hearing what was happening and were receiving some of the resources. What we've decided to do is we've included the resources or the products, the AI syllabus language, the activities that the faculty came up with. We've included those in what we call our Tools for Teaching box, which is a Canvas course site that all of our faculty here at Chabot are entered into in the student role. So we've created a place where they can go in that particular box and grab those resources, take a look at them, and engage with them as they wish. One thing I'd like to point out that I thought was really interesting as far as one of our takeaways was that for engaging AI activities, the faculty really saw that using AI productively in your course could help students realize that they possess knowledge. And I thought that was really an amazing takeaway for our COP, because so many faculty are going into the use of AI from a place of fear. And so we really wanted to sort of spotlight that this is just another tool in your tool belt. It's just another way to help your students realize that they know stuff and that they can use stuff and that they can be successful with it. So that is our little COP our 3 little COPs at Chabot.
Thank you, Christy. I find that fascinating. How you applied this concept and at your institution. I think that it's going to be really interesting to see how differently it is at Sac City and Maricosta. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dawn. We do have a question in the chat, folks. We're going to try to save the last 10 minutes for questions. If we can get through this question in about 5 minutes with each person. And so feel free to keep putting your questions in there, and I'll just try to keep tracking them. And anybody who wants to respond in chat, we invite you to do that. So Dawn, why don't you go ahead and take it from here?
Yeah. At City College, we have a first year experience program, which mostly includes a freshman seminar, interdisciplinary course. So I think 30 sections of it, 32 sections in the fall and several in the spring. So more than 1,000 first year students go through this course, and it's taught by a variety of faculty from across the college. And while working in the fall cohort, trying to envision what we could do, it occurred to me that I wanted to attempt to do a student facing, use the COP to create a student facing tool, creating a module in Canvas that all of these courses or most of the for freshman seminar courses could use to introduce AI literacy, ethics, tools, basic understanding of it at a community college level. The idea being that if we could institutionalize AI literacy in that course, it could hopefully have a downstream positive effect on how those students approached AI and understood AI policies and various classes, because they are very diverse policies, and just had a better sort of rounded understanding going into the rest of their courses. So that was the idea. Michelle told me very face to face, that sounds very ambitious. She was absolutely right. I maybe should have listened a little more, but so far, so I was able to put together a community of 10 other members. You see here, 7 faculty, 2 staff who were a counselor and a writing center coordinator, and 1 student employee who was employed this semester to be advised, basically one of 3 student advisors in the kind of technology and AI space that they had funded. And I planned it out very similar to how Michelle has run hers, with a 6 every other week, 6 meetings. I made them 90 minutes because I knew there was going to be a lot of work to get, a lot of conversation to have. And we've had 5 of those meetings so far. We have 1 more to go. And I don't need to go into the details of what, but I did sort of break down over 2 slides what we accomplished, what I set out to try to accomplish. Which was really just kind of, first of all, everybody kind of figuring out where they stood and what they understood and what their experience was with AI and how they thought it might fit into the classroom or fit into this first year experience course. Most of the faculty who were in the cohort, including myself, had taught this class at some point or actively was teaching a section every year. So we wanted that input too, how it could fit into this course. We did some research, we did breakout rooms, and most of the sessions, they were all fully Zoom, virtual. People really enjoyed the breakout sessions, and really felt they got a lot of good community conversation and shared ideas through that. Got a lot of reflection back on that point. We decided to do individual research and bring a lot of ideas to the table. So by session 3, if you want to go to the next slide, we were looking at, everyone was sort of in the 2 weeks between each session, they had an assignment, and they would post a Google Doc reflection on what they were gathering and what they were learning, so that everybody could see what everybody was doing. I used Notebook LM to analyze and create a synopsis of all of those ideas and feedback, which everybody enjoyed, to kind of looking at that. And then we started looking at, we chose an existing AI literacy module that I was able to find in Canvas from Rush University in Chicago. And we thought that it was a good starting point to a framework to build from ours. So we started analyzing that piece by piece and breaking down what we liked and what we didn't like and what we thought would fit better with our population, coming up with new ideas. So it really acted as a guideline. So over 3 sessions over 6 weeks, we got to a pretty good place as of last Friday, where we're at on kind of understanding what we want in it, what we're kind of creating on our own, what we might be repurposing. And And yeah, so we are now having set to have an in-person sit down 2 hour session in 2 weeks from last Friday, to try to get this in working order, or at least a draft model of it, because it's not something we're going to not walk away in 2 weeks with a Canvas modules ready to go. It's going to take continued work on my part and maybe one or two others, to continue working on it, probably over the summer to have it ready. Our goal, though, is to, or I might be jumping to the next question about, yeah, how far it's going to go, or what the plans are after we're done. So I can speak to that when we get there. Or do you want me to do that now? You're off, Michelle. Muted.
Thanks for that. I think we'll go ahead and jump over to Jim, and then maybe we can kind of check in on that question quickly before we open it up to Q&A. So thank you so much, Dawn. Jim, you want to tell us a little bit more about how this is fitting into your context that you introduced previously?
Yeah. And let me say, I didn't say previously, but I've long been a big enthusiast of the community of practice idea. I actually studied Levenwinger when I was in grad school, and I had run a couple communities of practice when I was at San Diego State. This will tell you how long I've been doing ed tech things. One was on when clickers were a new thing, and it was on using clickers in large classrooms. One was on when iPads first came out, and what can we do with iPads? But communities of practice weren't really a thing at MiraCosta. I mean, we do a lot of things that are sort of kind of like it, but not really a thing. And one of the things that surprised me, it was cool to hear in the COP on COPs that Michelle facilitated, was that there are some colleges where COPs actually are kind of established, maybe even in the union contract. There's sort of like a whole set of expectations for what that means if you're going to run a community of practice, how people are compensated and what's expected of them and such. And we have nothing like that at MiraCosta. So for me, it was really exciting and helpful to be part of the community of practice that Michelle ran, just as a model and sort of like, oh yeah, I can do this kind of stuff. This is how this works. This is cool. So it was just a level of comfort for me in like, yes, this is so important. And for me, all those things that were happening at MiraCosta, a lot of it was very like, it kind of skirted around the question of like pedagogy and like how should you actually change your class? What should you do about the effect of students having access to AI is having on the way you design your class and assess your class? And it seemed like that was the kind of thing that wasn't really a good fit for just like a stand-up 1 hour workshop or a one-off conversation on Zoom. It needed a longer conversation. And we've been encouraging departments to have their own disciplinary conversations, because a lot of times that is very related to discipline. But I am personally a big advocate of cross-disciplinary conversations about that kind of thing as well, because I think sometimes hearing how somebody's thinking about it from a completely different discipline can cause some light bulbs to go off, some creativity. So that's where I landed as the community of practice that I wanted to facilitate. And I'm just going to share a couple things real quick about that. So I decided, because again, there wasn't really a precedent for this, people didn't have an understanding of what this might look like, to run a couple of workshops that would sort of serve as previews of what I wanted to do in a longer, more sustained conversation with folks that would be completely voluntary, that wouldn't have any set expectations, that wouldn't have any compensation, but just to get the discussion started. So I want to just share with you this this Google Doc that provides the structure for a couple of the. I ran this workshop twice, once during our Flex Week at the beginning of the spring semester, and once during that Fifth Friday conference that I shared with you. And this is actually, it shows you the way that it worked as a Zoom-based workshop where I had breakout rooms, and there's real contributions from my participants, but it just can serve as an example if you want to make a copy of this, if it's helpful at all to you. But it definitely generated interest running this workshop a couple times. There was a sign up on the at the end of the workshop, and a number of people signed up because they wanted to do it. I will say one of the things Michelle advised is, if you're going to do a community of practice, figure out your timing and then advertise it. And I didn't do that, and it made it more complicated. But in a certain way, it actually was kind of cool, because I had a lot of people that signed up ahead of time without having set a time. And then I asked, part of the sign up was, when are you available? And then I realized, wow, I probably need to run 2 different groups to capture as many of these folks as possible. And so I ended up doing 2 parallel communities of practice. One's on Wednesday afternoons at 3:30 and one's on Thursdays at 11:30. And we decided to do them both as high flex, but another just kind of little practical revelation was, wow, the 3:30 one, even though we were high flex, nobody came in person. Everybody's online that late in the day. But the 11:30, I had a bunch of people that really, really wanted to be in person. So it's about half and half. And each of those groups has ended up being about 10 to 12 people. I did, once I set those times, put out one more invitation to the campus community with, we've set these times. Do you want to join us to do this thing that we're doing, even if you didn't go through that first thing? And so we had a number of people that joined at that point as well. I will just also share that both of those groups, I set up a Google Doc. I'm a big Google Doc person. I set up a Google Doc as sort of the structure for our first meetings. And we're doing these, as I said, in high flex. I'm encouraging people that come to bring their laptops so they can engage in real time in the Google Doc as well. So I'm just going to share both groups ended up deciding to just kind of keep one running Google Doc. We only set 3 meetings. We're meeting once a month. February, March, April. But the cool thing is that people are engaging outside. One of the groups decided they would take turns with responsibility for sending out email nudges once a week with just like, here's a thing I'm thinking about, or here's an interesting article I read related to this whole topic we're working on. One of the groups had sort of a subgroup within it that are either language instructors or English instructors, and one of them took it upon themselves to convene a meeting outside of the group where, like, here are some of the problems I'm engaging with around assessing language learning, and there was a really rich discussion that happened there. So it's all just in this little kind of mini low stakes COP, setting off some great conversations. And lots of people have asked me, can we do this from the beginning of the year in the fall? So to jump ahead, that is the plan, to just do another one of these, but start it in the fall.
That's awesome. Thank you to all 3 of you. Jim, I think your comments are starting to get at some of that. What I find to be the most challenging part of facilitating is creating the structure, but also leaving things with enough space to be organic and be sure that folks feel the space to be able to lean in and make contributions and steer things in different directions. So I really appreciate that. So real quick, maybe in a minute, if I could check in with each of you on this question of sustaining. Back to that life cycle slide that I shared, the last phase of a COP is sustaining. So that means, like, maybe for our sake anyway, we've got this kind of structure where people agree to meet a certain number of times. So I'm wondering if you have anything to share, and maybe you don't, maybe you're not sure yet, but do you have anything to share about what you envision that kind of sustaining phase to be? Or if it will, or what it might look like.
Well, I can just speak to the, as I mentioned before, sustaining it will include continuing working on it to actually have this module ready for fall. But what we do hope to do is have at least half of the faculty who are teaching that freshman seminar class use this module, go through a little bit of a flex activity training on what's in it and how to utilize it in their class, and then get a lot of feedback throughout the semester about how they're incorporating it, using it. Because I've had other faculty across the campus who, hearing about this project, want access to that module. It's like, fall is our beta test. We created this for a particular class. We're going to test it and improve upon it before we put it out there, if we decide to even put it out there as a general access commons sort of thing or not. So that's where we're at with that.
Christy or Jim, you have anything to share?
I'm not sure yet, Michelle, to be
Mhm.
honest. I know we've got a lot of faculty who are asking to view recordings of these sessions, but we chose not to record the sessions from the COPs as they worked. We felt that we really wanted to kind of create that safe space, that they could say what they needed to say without feeling like somebody else would have access to that. So I'm not sure yet. I know that We are looking at creating workshops around, so for example, the engaging AI activities. So what we're looking to do is how can we create sort of a 90-minute workshop that allows faculty to bring an activity in that they would like to sort of transform into utilizing AI to complete that activity. So we're looking to figure out ways that we can kind of institutionalize, for lack of a better word, the things that we're getting as takeaways from the little COPs that we're running.
Jim, any thoughts?
Yeah, not much to add. I've been also chatting with people who've been asking good questions in the chat, and I think some of this relates to this idea: is this a DE problem, challenge? And I think people. Well, first of all, I would just say one of the reasons I like MiraCosta is we don't really think of DE as a silo. We think of online education, and online is broader than just DE. Online is all the different things going on online with instructional technologies and such, even if you're a classroom-based instructor, but you're using online tools. So I think people like us are really important to be in the middle of those conversations. I don't think, at least at MiraCosta, people haven't been pointing to that, but I also wrote a thing about how COPs are part of a long-term change strategy. Like it feels like you're just working intensively with a small group of folks, but that results in kind of this snowball effect, right? And so if these folks have new ideas, they're going to take them back into their departments, to the colleagues that are in the offices across the hall, to whatever their networks are. And I think that's part of what's happening here is that you're not trying to, it's not a grand solution or a big picture thing that's happening, but it is a thing that has ripple effects and that happen over time.
Thank you for bringing up that snowball metaphor. I think that's really important. And yes, do not expect that by the end of the structured COP that you design to the trainer that the whole organization is going to be changed, right? It's picking up the momentum. It's depending on what's happening already, either increasing the momentum or getting it started or contributing in some way. So I think that's really important. And it's really fascinating, again, to just see how different each organizational context is and what the needs are. And so many differences. Jim, even like the idea of the joyful teaching coordinator, I think there's some people are like, what? Like that? We've never even thought about something like that. So it's great to hear you all share. And I also want to say thanks to you that have shared so many links and other resources so that the folks here today can continue to learn. I do want to jump back just to one question that we had from Jamie earlier, and this is something that has come up in our COPs quite a bit too, and Jamie's actually one of our members. How did your campus feel about having to apply? I'm worried if I do that, no one will have the energy to apply and I'll be a COP of one.
So Michelle, I'll take that one because I was really worried about that as well, because we set specific dates and very specific guidelines for what participation would look like. And part of the reason for that was because we were going to provide 3 F hours of funding to faculty who completed and participated. And we even required at the end, they deliver a product in order to receive sort of their final payment, right? And so I was very much worried about that and pleasantly surprised that when we sent out the first form to be filled out, the first email, we had more than 3 from each division who applied. And so I was pleasantly surprised that it was just not me and the rest of my department. So yeah. I think that the people who are interested and who are available at those particular times applied and were okay with applying. And it also set the expectations so that everyone knew what they needed to do and what our obligation was as well, what we were going to do, how we were going to support everyone who was applying as well.
I'll just say I don't think there was an issue with it at all. But we did during Flex Week or Professional Development Week at the beginning of the semester, we did a session promoting this this community, really an information session, letting people know what we were doing, why we were doing it, how we were doing it. So I think there were probably 40 people. That was a high flex presentation. There were probably at least 40 people in there who were curious about it. And I think everybody who applied we took, because there wasn't a huge, we did not have any kind of compensation available. And so it was purely voluntary, and it was a lot of work to volunteer for, about 20 hours in the semester at least. So we didn't get a huge influx of applicants, but everybody who did got in.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, well, we're about out of time here, folks. I did put a link in the chat, and there's a QR code on the screen. We'd love to hear your takeaways or one takeaway from today's event. And I'm just going to leave this open as we wrap up. We've got 1 more minute. The recording of today's session will be available online, and sure, I can do that, Lori. Here's that QR code again. And I'll put the slides in the link one more time if you didn't grab those before. But if everybody could just give a great big round of applause for our panelists today. Garrick, is there anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you so much. Anwar put the survey link in the chat. If you wouldn't mind taking that survey, that would be excellent. We use that for making sure we're reaching the field and the needs that you have. Michelle, thank you so much. Jim, Don, Christy, thank you so much as well. It was a great conversation today. Really appreciate your time.
And by the way, Garrick is the PD director for CVC Net 1. Sorry, Garrick, I didn't give you much of an introduction there.
No worries. We were working behind the scenes today, and everything went really well. So thank you all for attending today.
All right, folks. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up there, and have a great day. Stay safe, and we'll see you again soon.